And we are back with the and we start where we left off with the main event of WrestleMania Night 1, which was the SmackDown Women's Championship match.
Between the EST and winner of the Women's Royal Rumble match, Bianca Belair, challenging Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's title.
This was the second time the women had main evented a WrestleMania event. Of course, the first one being Ronda Rousey, Charlotte, and Pregnant Lynch.
Yeah.
Who will hopefully be turning back up soon.
Hopefully, or being well.
But I would argue that this match was ultimately better. And this match was the first time, as Michael Cole pointed out as they were making their entrance, that two women of colour would main event of WrestleMania.
Correct.
Now, if you were watching this, you would have seen that just before the bell rang, it was the emotion of what was just about to happen almost got the better of Bianca Belair.
Almost.
She looked on the verge of tears. I think the emotion was getting to Sasha as well, but she managed to hold her in a little better. So the match gets underway. And there was a few amazing spots in this match.
There were.
Most noticeably was when Sasha Banks would dive through the ropes onto Bianca Belair, only for Belair to roll through it and literally carry Sasha Banks back up the ring steps and into the ring. Bianca Belair would go for the 450 splash in the midway point of the match, only to be counted. Banks attempted to use the long hair of Bianca Belair against her by pulling on it, only for Belair to almost pull back and send Charlotte into the ring post. Banks would use the hair successfully whilst applying the bank statement. But as things got towards the end, Bianca Belair would hit Sasha Banks with the 450 splash, only for Sasha to kick out at 2. And this is where things got a little bit ouch.
Yes, as we heard something quite painful.
Who knew that a ponytail could be so painful?
Yes, basically Belair got hold of the ponytail and smacked it right into Sasha Banks' midsection.
We've heard the whipping, we've never heard the whipping with some hair.
And then that was quickly followed by a KOD
Well,
by Bianca
Not quite, because it was Bella would whip Sasha in the midsection with her hair, put, attempt the KOT. Sasha would get out of it. They would do a bit of scuffling back and forth where Sasha would attempt to backstab her, only for Belair to get Banks up and actually hit the KOD and pin Sasha Banks to become the SmackDown Women's Champion, and the EST of WWE is now the EST of Friday Night SmackDown, ending Sasha Banks' reign at 167 days. It's, my calculations is correct, is roughly 5 months.
Is indeed right.
So, will go through the matches for night 1 before we jump to night 2.
So, starting off with the main event of night 1, as Bobby Lashley retained his WWE Championship against Drew McIntyre by technical submission.
Natalya and Tamina would win the tag team turmoil match to receive a women's tag team championship match for night 2.
Cesaro beat He's Not Messiah, He's a Very Naughty Boy in Seth Rollins.
AJ Styles and Omos defeated the New Day to win the Raw Tag Team Championships.
Braun Strowman murdered Shane McMahon as though a steel cage.
Bad Bunny and Damian Priest defeated Miz and Morrison in a tag team match.
And in the main event of night 1, Bianca Belair defeats Sasha Banks to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion.
24 hours later, night 2 of WrestleMania.
This time got underway with no problem whatsoever.
Even though the weather was reported to be worse.
But it held off.
So night 2 got underway with The Fiend and Randy Orton.
A rivalry that has been brewing since TLC.
I honestly do not know what the hell to say about this.
Let's just cut straight to the chase, shall we?
Well, try to minimize this. Alexa Bliss comes out, and there's a giant toy box set up by her inside. And as she turns it, the Fiend comes out, no longer burnt to a crisp, I may add. So the match gets underway. We have the red light back being beamed to the ring, which I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of. For the most part, it looked like the Fiend was dominating. Then we had Orton hit some of his vintage DDTs. The Fiend would lock in the mandible claw. And then we go to Sister Abigail, only for the Fiend to be distracted by Alexa Bliss.
It was literally covered in black liquid and had like a crown rose of thorns on her head.
Resulting in Randy Orton being able to hit the RKO and pick up for victory.
Not much to everyone's shock. And at the end of the match, after Alexa Bliss and The Fiend disappeared from the ring, fans started booing.
Then we went to the Women's Tag Team Championship match, which had been decided the night before when Natalia and Tamina would challenge Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Now, there was a bit of a family issue here because remember Tamina and Nia Jax are related to each other in some cousin form, I believe.
Yes, as a part of the Anahuahi family.
But this, for what it was, this was a decent tag team match.
It was indeed.
But in the end, it was Jackson Baszler, well, Baszler in a really was able to outthink the veteran Natalia. Because they had managed to get Nia Jax down, except Baszler managed to get the tag which Natalia did not notice. And as Natalia locked a sharpshooter in on Nia Jax, Baszler came in, grabbed a hold of Natalia, and would go into the Kofida clutch, allowing Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler to win the match, again by technical submission, and retain these Women's Tag Team Championships.
We move on to our next match, which was another grudge match between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who had controversial YouTuber Logan Paul in his corner.
Yeah, so as we stated before, and I think a lot of people have said this, with the history between the two, yes, this is a WrestleMania worthy match. However, there has been no story / build to this match whatsoever.
No.
But the match was still good because of the two virtual in it.
Yes.
So Owens would immediately go perform a Papa powerbomb onto Sami Zayn. Of course, Zayn would would hit the blame buster on the Lynn apron, which is found as part of the win, and the Blue Thunderball, or Thunderbomb, I should say, for the near
I
fall.
was gonna say.
And after, in the end, after Zayn would go for the Hoover kick, only for Owens to counter into two super kicks and a stunner to win the match. After the match, Mr. Paul would come into the ring, attempt to congratulate Owens on his win. Of course, Mr. Paranoia, as he seems to be these days. And Sami Zayn was like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Especially my guest of honor.
But then he got shoved by Logan Paul for that. And as Paul raised Owens' hand in celebration, he was hit by a stunner.
Yeah, and to Logan Paul's credit, he did sell the stunner quite well.
Yes, and he was stunned back to YouTube.
Where he belongs.
Yes, note to WWE, if you're gonna get a YouTuber to be involved in some kind of storyline, get someone like Luge or Grim.
Yes, all wrestling days. So we now move to a match that was kind of thrown together last minute in a way. As
Yes,
Sheamus takes on Riddle for the United States Championship.
yes, in what seems to be the classic way to get a title shot at the minute. A few weeks ago on Raw, Sheamus would defeat Riddle in a non-title match. So of course that means that he gets a title match at WrestleMania.
And the match itself was actually alright. I think there was a bit of a botch in this match, however.
Yes, towards the ending of the match, Sheamus would attempt a white noise from the top rope.
Yes.
That looked like Sheamus slipped. And when
Slightly.
and then they still hit the white noise, but it was done from the ring rather than the top rope. The ending of the match was a bit of a sight to behold,
It was.
as Riddle would go for a leap from the ring ropes onto Sheamus, only to be met with a boot of a bro kick,
Yeah.
which busted Riddle's mouth and allowed Sheamus to pin Riddle to win the match and give Sheamus his first singles championship in just about 6 years, and his first United States championship in almost 7, his third United States championship overall.
Yes.
Now, speaking of championships,
Yes.
because
Someone who's been called up.
night 2 of WrestleMania was pretty much all title matches, with the exception of Owens and Zayn. We go to Wakanda.
Yes. As Black Panther, we mean Apollo Crews, challenges Big E for the Intercontinental Championship.
Now, this match, the build to it has been good, because a little Biggie who won the Intercontinental Championship on the Christmas Day episode of SmackDown would then go into a open challenge period and have a few friendly face versus face matches with Apollo Crews. This would lead Crews to go down to a path of turning into a heel. And then this would go down the route of the botched end into their title match at Fastlane. And this would be announced as a Nigerian drum match, which is
Which is
essentially a hardcore match.
or essentially an Extreme Rules match.
Yes, but they have their own pay-per-view to do that on.
Yes.
And the match itself, considering the potential of these guys, and the matches they've had before. To me, was a complete and utter letdown because we had. So we had Biggie and Cruz immediately get kendo sticks and attack each
Yeah.
other, and they would go at each other. So we're skipping to the end because this wasn't exactly a long match. It was about just under 6 minutes, just over six
Yeah.
minutes. I think what was it? Apollo would attempt a frog splash on Biggie through a table,
Yeah.
only for Biggie to move, hit the
Mm.
big ending, where he had the match won, only for NXT superstar, or slash former NXT superstar, Bob Day, who has been gone from Babakande to Dapakato to
Commander Aziz.
come into the ring, focus on Biggie, to allow Bobby Lashley to Bobby Lashley, Apollo Crews to win the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah.
Last time we saw him was Raw Underground,
Yeah. So Apollo Crews is now your new Intercontinental Champion.
which, from my perspective, I'm not annoyed about. It's just the way it went down. So next we go to another, well, somewhere in this area. I think it was at the beginning of WrestleMania this time. There was another moment of Bailey and Hogan and Titus.
Yes. Basically, Titus O'Neil and Hulk Hogan were out on stage doing a little promo, and when they introduced out the Bella Twins.
We'll get we'll get to what happened fully in a second, but there was an incident backstage where they were talking about Sasha and Bianca's match. And then Bailey comes out, is ignored by Hogan. Titus is there like sorry,
Mm.
and then walks away. But, but back to the action, we get to the Raw Women's Championship match
Oh yes,
with
as Rhea Ripley, who was called up to the main roster only 2 weeks ago, challenges Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship.
yes, two questions. Is was Ripley ready for Asuka? And was Asuka ready for the brutality of Rhea Ripley?
I see what you did there.
So here, this was. I want to say this was a good match, but could have been better if it had been given a bit more time.
Yeah, it could have been, yeah.
Because Asuka would go after a fairly decent match. Asuka would go for a DDT onto Ripley off of the apron to the floor. And of course, the Asuka lock was locked in, but Ripley managed to get out of it. Then we will have Asuka attempt a few almost yes kick type maneuvers, only for Ripley to be able to get up, hit the riptide onto Asuka, and a new champion is born.
In Rhea Ripley, and she made history by becoming the first woman to hold not only the NXT
Yes, the
championship,
yes, first woman to hold the NXT UK Women's Championship, the NXT Championship, and the Women's Championship on the main roster.
yes,
But that's not all that would happen, because on Tuesday's episode of NXT, when they were doing a segment with Dakota Kai and congratulating Miguel Gonzalez on her becoming the
NXT champion.
Rhea Ripley would make an appearance, as would Bianca Belair.
But there was a bit of a noticeable mistake on Bianca Belair's title.
Yes, Bianca Belair's title would still have the custom side plate of Sasha Banks, but that's just not what the point of the moment was. Because once Belair got into the ring, they would show an old photo from gotta be a couple of years ago where all three of them started in NXT at roughly the same time.
Yes, but now all three of them are champions.
Of their respective shows. Ah.
So do you remember what we said about Bayley?
Yes, after this match is when Hogan and Titus would come up to the stage again. Only for Bayley to come out and just state that she was tired of being disrespected by the legend. Only for recent Hall of Fame inductees, the Bella Twins, come out and attack Bayley and basically send her flying down the ramp.
By saying, ding dong, goodbye.
Yes, Din Don Hello became Din Don Goodbye. And that just leaves the main event.
Now we go on to a very hyped up main event as the head of the table puts his Universal title on the line against Edge, the winner of the men's Royal Rumble match, and Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, this was brutal. Of course, yes, pretty much from the opening moments of this match, almost, a little pest called Jey Uso will attempt to get involved.
He would, but he was quickly dealt with.
Super kicking both Edge and Bryan, and then attempting to put I think it was Edge he was attempting to put through the announce table, only to be dealt with by Edge, who would hit an execution on the steel steps to take Uso out of the majority. And yes, I noticed I did say majority of the match. Bryan would hit Edge with the running knee and put the yes lock onto Roman Reigns. But Edge would break that up. Edge would lock Roman Reigns into the crossface, a move which has a interesting story regarding triple threat matches at WrestleMania.
It does.
However, at this point as well, Daniel Bryan had Roman Reigns in the Yes Lock. So what would have happened if Roman had tapped there?
Mm.
And then here, as we got to the end of the match, there was a case where Edge and Roman Reigns would both go for the spear, but would like headbutt each other.
Mm.
But then Edge would go for some steel chairs after Edge had hit the spear onto Roman Reigns, but the referee being pulled out by Daniel Bryan. Edge would go for some steel chairs and would attempt a concerto. First hit a concerto onto Daniel Bryan, and then attempt a concerto on Roman Reigns, only for the pest known as Jey Uso to turn back up.
Yes, and get involved in the matchup.
Just causing enough of a distraction for Reigns to be able to hit Edge with a spear and a concerto of his own, and would put Edge's body across Daniel Bryan's and pin them both at the same time in order to retain the championship. Now, here, I think WWE might have something to build on.
They might.
Because Daniel Bryan's shoulders were on the floor.
But Edge's
But
weren't.
the fact that Edge was on top of Daniel Bryan makes me think that they may go down the route of Edge saying that technically he wasn't pinned in the match.
But in any event, Roman Reigns has.
For now, retain the Universal Championship.
So let us run you through the match card in full once again.
Now, we'll go through the match card for night 2 before going through the full thing. Night 2 started with Randy Orton defeating The Fiend.
Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler retained the women's tag team titles against Natalya and Tamina.
Kevin Owens defeated Sami Zayn.
Sheamus defeated Riddle to become the new United States champion.
Apollo Crews defeated Big E to become the new Intercontinental Champion.
Rhea Ripley defeated Asuka to become the new Raw Women's Champion.
And with a bit of help from Jey Uso, Roman Reigns defeated Edge and Daniel Bryan to retain the Universal Championship, marking the first time since WrestleMania 34 that both World Championships were retained.
Yes.
As we go through both nights again, with night 1, Bobby Lashley defeated Drew McIntyre to retain the WWE Championship.
Natalya and Tamina won the tag team title match to become number one contenders for the women's tag team titles on night 2.
Cesaro defeated Seth Rollins.
Braun Strowman murdered Shane McMahon inside a steel cage.
AJ Styles and almost defeated the New Day to win the Raw Tag Team Championships.
Bad Bunny and Damian Priest defeated The Miz and Morrison.
And Bianca Belair defeated Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship.
Now on to night 2. Randy Orton defeated The Fiend.
Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defeated Natalia and Tamina by technical submission to retain the Women's Tag Team Championships.
Kevin Owens defeated Sami Zayn.
Sheamus defeated Riddle for the United States Championship.
Rhea Ripley defeated Asuka to become the new Raw Women's Champion.
Apollo Crews defeated Lee for the Intercontinental Championship.
And Roman Reigns retained his Universal Championship with a bit of help from Jey Uso against Edge and Daniel Bryan.
So, with WrestleMania over and done with, the countdown begins for April of 2020, April 3rd, 2022, and the TNT Stadium for WrestleMania 38. But for now, with what comes after WrestleMania is the Backlash.
Yes, WrestleMania Backlash. So until then, he's been
Rachel Rock Jones, and he's been
Sean Smith, and we will see you next time.